All right, so we're going to look at example A, and we're going to be using the 6 steps that was given on in the previous slide, that green rectangle that had 6 steps. We're going to be using those 6 steps to determine Kyle Abrams' withholdings. So we have this table just below with the information for Kyle Abram. This comes from actually the previous section. You'll actually find this information. This is just a part of a table that you saw back in the previous section, section 10.1. And then we also have figure 10.3. And so that was also on the previous slide. So this right here, this is figure 10.3. And this is figure 10.4. So all this information was given in the previous slide, but notice that that figure 10.4 is actually, or what I have here as figure 10.4 is actually just half of what was given in the previous slide. You'll notice that this is the right portion of what was given in the previous slide because we're dealing with someone that is married. And as you can see here, Kyle Abram is his marital status is written down as M for married. So we're going to be using the married table. The left part of figure 10.4 that was given in the previous slide is for a single person. So if we, and you'll actually notice that in the previous slide, that was also just part of a figure 10.4. And that was, I didn't mention this before in the previous slide recording, audio recording, that that what was given is not all of 10.4. I didn't want to put all of 10.4, but you'll notice that what was given that I haven't in the previous slide is just for a weekly payroll period. And notice that for Kyle Abram, this is based, his earnings is based off of 1 week. As you can see, the amount of hours he worked, it's 40 regular hours, 3 overtime. It's just that's a week's work. So that's why I only provided the weekly table for single and married in the previous slide, and because he's married, only the married information in this recording. So now let's get into the problem. We have the first step is to determine the employee's gross earnings. So the employee's gross earning, Kyle's gross earnings, is given in this table. So gross earnings. So step 1, we have gross earnings is equal to $756.50. Step 2, we have to multiply by the appropriate weekly or monthly withholding allowance that is actually given in figure 10.3. And notice that this is a payroll period based off of a week, as we mentioned before. So we want to use this row, week. And so one withholding allowance would be $76. And we need to multiply, as mentioned in step 2. We want to multiply by the number of allowances. So this is given in the table, the withholding allowances. Now, one piece of information you need to know for your homework, you need to know this, is the withholding allowances will not be just given to you as a number, like 4. It won't be saying the withholding allowances is 4. It'll be given more specific information in regarding how you get a certain number. So a withholding allowance is based on, well, you can have an allowance for yourself, you can have an allowance for your spouse, your children, and so you need to, so if you're married with 2 children, so including yourself, your spouse, and 2 children, that's what Kyle could be dealing with right here. That's how he may have 4 withholding allowances, is having 2 children and being married. Or he, so he is married, so that could be a possibility. So just keep that in mind for your homework. It may be given like you a breakdown of how many children the person has, and you'll need to determine how many allowances based on the given information. So if we have from figure 10.3, $76, and we're multiplying that by a number of withholding allowances, that's what's mentioned in step 2, that will give us $304. That piece of information, including the information from step 1, will be used in step 3. Step 3, as mentioned, is to subtract the amount from the employee's gross earnings. So use step 2, amount that we just derived, and subtract that from step 1, the gross earnings. So we're going to take $756.50 and subtract 304, and that will give us $452.50. Now this amount right here, after you subtract the allowances amount from the gross earnings, that gives you the amount that I just circled is what we're going to be using to determining which tax bracket we're in figure 10.4. So the information on the bottom right here, this table, we're going to be using this $452.50. So after you subtract the allowances, we're going to take that amount and see which tax bracket we're in. So we would determine that $452.50, we are in between 163 and 512. We're in between those two values right there. So we're not in between 512. We're not in between 512 and 1582. So yeah, we're in between these two values in this row. So over 163, but not over 512. So we're looking at the first row. We're just looking at the first row. Now this example is slightly trivial in some ways, because we don't have to add a certain amount. But all these different amounts we have here, 35. If we're in the second row, for example, we have this 3490 plus 15%. That 3490 comes based off of making $512 at 10%. Well, actually, you don't include the 163. So it's actually 512 minus 163 multiplied by 0. So yeah, let's go ahead and yeah, actually, it's not too trivial, because we're only looking at the amount that's over $163. So it would actually be a bit more trivial if we were looking at a weekly earning that's less than 163. It's pretty simple to determine. So let's actually look at so looking at this tax bracket right here, we look at this information, and I'm going to change colors because this is the kind of the next phase after you determine the tax bracket you're in. We want to look at this information right here to determine how much we pay, or how much withholdings we have. So the amount of income tax to withhold, so that's what we're trying to find right here, is based on this information right here. So we're in this row right here, $0 plus 10%. So the reason we say $0 is because the previous tax bracket, we're not making it, we're not withholding anything. So moving into this next tax bracket, we have $0 plus 10% of excess over $163. So we need to take this $512 amount and subtract $163, because the first $163, we're not taking anything out. So keep in mind that if you're in a 15%, let's just say you're in a 25% tax bracket, you're in this third bracket right here, that doesn't mean all money that you make in the week is at a 25%. It's only the amount that's in that interval. So so the money that you make in from 163 to 512 is taxed 10%. Then the money you make from 512 to 1582 is at 15%. So you're taxed at all these rates below 25%. It's only the amount that's in this interval that you make that's going to be taxed 25% if you're in the third tax bracket. So that's why you don't just take 10% and multiply it by the amount you make. We have to actually break it down. So not the amount that's not over $163, it's not being taxed at all, as we can see right here. So we need to subtract $163 that's not being that doesn't have any withholding value, and we're going to take $452.50 and subtract 163, and that gives us $289.50. So that amount right there, this amount that I have rectangled in this brown color here, that is the amount that is in this 163 to 512 range. That's the only amount that's over $163. So that amount only is at a 10% tax rate. So we are going to take that amount right there, $289.50, and multiply that by 10%. And that gives us $28.95. So now you may be wondering, so what we've just determined is we determined the amount of withholding that Kyle would have for that week. So if he made $452.50, that gives us $28.95 that would be withheld from his taxes or from his paycheck. So you may be familiar and you may have thought about this already or read up on this, that what we're dealing with here is doing the calculations that that you may have dealt with when with a W-4. So you choose with a W-4 how many allowances you have. You may have dealt with this if you've in most types of employments that not you wouldn't have this for self-employment, but if you're working for someone, you probably filled out a W-4. And so you choose your allowances, and you may know that the more allowances you choose, the more money you get back in your paycheck. So this amount, $28.95, is the amount that's subtracted from your paycheck. So what we're doing is we're doing the calculations that an accountant would be doing, or actually a lot of this would probably be done automatically. There are forms of technology that will do this for you automatically, but if you want to do this by hand, this is the process you would have to go through to determine how much money an employee would have to take out of their paycheck based on the amount of allowances they have and the gross earnings that they made. This is the process you would use. We have this sort of tax bracket sort of system that we have in the United States, and this is what we would be dealing with if we wanted to determine the allowances. So hopefully this makes sense. This is a bit lengthy video, but if you want to know the process and not all the background and information, you can just pay attention to that. So anyways, let me know if you have any concerns, and I'll be more than happy to help. And I do want to specify which step after step 3. I did forget to mention that. This is step 4 right here, and this is step 5. And you'll notice that we did not have a step 6 for this, and that is because we are in this it's adding the amount that you have right here. There's nothing to add. As you can see in table 10.4, we have nothing to add. And so if you read in the textbook, example A that's worked out, that is what they're referring to as the amount. So if you're in the second tax bracket, there'd be the 3490 below here that you would add. That would be your step 6. Or so anyways, that's what the step 6 would be. So there's nothing to do. So this is our final answer. Okay.